Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Moving Fast Podcast. I'm here with my business partner, Matt Tincher, today. Topic of conversation is something that a lot of people aren't aware of unless you're in trucking. And even then, you might be in logistics or trucking and might not know exactly what it is. So, we're going to dive into that in a little bit. But first, Matt and I have actually not had a chance to connect because we haven't put a podcast out in a while because we've both been working in different states for the last month. I'll talk about it in a little bit in a second, but Matt, what have you been doing the last 3 or 4 weeks?
Oh man, it has been absolutely crazy. So you were down in Florida for spring training. We got the Reds. We helped out with the Reds, the Pirates, and the Twins. We got all their cars shipped back to their home bases for the season. While you were down there, I was manning the day-to-day operations. Not only that, but we've just continued to hire new people. We're poised for growth this year, and we're getting people in place and everyone trained up for peak season. We're anticipating an awesome volume this year. And that's what I've been doing, man. We've just been growing and working hard and hustling and trying to hit that next level.
Yeah, it was definitely wild. So this was the first year I was on the ground with two different teams in Florida. Last year it was just the Pirates, but this year it was the Twins and the Pirates. And luckily they're only about an hour and a half apart. But yeah, it was interesting. Kind of handing over the day-to-day operations, including my normal accounts and like my normal
Right.
daily activities like quoting and stuff over to you and the team. And I was just
Well,
down
hopefully I
there.
did a good job.
Hey, we're still here. But
Yeah. No
yeah,
one's
it
mad
was
at
interesting.
us.
No, well, not yet. So it's Wednesday.
Yeah.
But yeah, it
It's
was
only
it was
April.
fun. It was fun. It was intense. It was about 70 cars over the course of 6 days, and really it was
Mhm.
70 cars loaded over the course of 2 days because that's the time constraint we had is just get them picked up like
Right.
on this day when the players park them in the parking lot. So, it was collecting keys, it was getting payments, it was organizing trucks. This year was about 14 trucks. They weren't all full truckloads. It was four full truckloads, but then, we had a couple of three-car haulers and a couple of one-offs that got added last second. But I
Right.
personally handled overseeing 70 cars on 14 different trucks. So um,
Not to
that week
mention,
was
we
a
were bringing
blur.
some cars out of Arizona too. It wasn't just Florida. We are bringing cars out of
Oh yeah, I
Arizona. We were
mean,
shipping cars out of South Carolina and Georgia, getting
yep.
them back to their home bases. Wherever these guys, it was a logistic nightmare for MLB this year. They said on Friday, hey, the lockout's over with. You guys need to be in spring training less than 48 hours. So everyone had to drop what they were doing, hop on the flight, and
Yeah.
hope for the best.
What and I was talking to a few of the players down there and a couple of their wives. When I went to one of the Twins games, I was talking
Yeah.
to them and I was like, "Hey, what was it like this year?" It was a nightmare. They're like, "Hey, we got a call on Friday. You got to be here on Tuesday morning. Doesn't matter how you get here. Figure out your lodging. We expect you to be here. Like no notice." So turns out what they do is a lot of these people they just rent out like an Airbnb. Well, I don't know if it was just this year or if this is how it always operates, but the Airbnb people that usually rent out their entire homes knew about what was going on with baseball. So they made it to where there were only like 3 month commitments, a minimum. So basically,
Wow. Okay.
even now, some of the Twins players actively have an Airbnb down in Florida that haven't been to in like 3 weeks, and they still have it for
Yeah.
another 2 weeks. But it is what it
Yeah.
is. So, um,
You gotta do what you
but
gotta do.
that all being said, me loading those 14 trucks and all those cars, kind of want to segue into our topic of conversation today and why, for the first time, and I think our career, we can both agree
Ever.
that we might
Yep.
actually endorse this program and need it more than ever. It is DOT Blitz Week. Matt, you want to explain what that is?
So DOT Blitz Week this week, this year, it's May 17th through 19th. And sometimes they call it Blitz Week. It's called DOT Inspection Week. Some people call it DOT Crackdown, however you want to look at it. It's 72 hours of DOT enforcement, stopping any and every truck that they can. They do full inspections from bumper to bumper. They make sure that everything is in compliance with the DOT safety regulations. So what it does is it actually causes shipper and driver delays because they're not just checking the brake lights. They're not just making sure that the refrigerated units are running correctly or that the engine's running. They are doing full point inspections. Sometimes if it's safe, I was reading an article earlier this week, sometimes if it's even safe enough on the highway, the DOT inspectors will straight up get on the ground and shimmy under the trucks to see how the front end is looking, see what the brake pads and the calipers look like. They're looking at the axles, and we'll talk about axles here in a second. But there's so many components that go into this DOT Blitz week that it really does, like shippers and brokers like us that we've been in the business now for a combined 25 years. We've seen everything, and delays happen, and it's just crazy. And it's something that if you're not in trucking, or you're new to trucking, it's just something that you don't necessarily anticipate causing delays for your drivers. And it affects everybody, from refrigerated carriers to flatbeds to dry vans to, of course, the 18-wheeler household goods movers. So anybody with a CDL is prone to inspection. Peyton, I think you said earlier that there were 40,000 plus inspections.
Yeah. So in 2021,
last year in 2021. Yeah.
2021, there were 40,000 inspections. What that comes down to is 15 inspections a minute. And then I got a couple interesting stats here, which actually I didn't even think they would be this high. So for those of you that don't know, Matt and I check it out all the time. It's called SAFER. It's the it's a Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. It's their website that you can get on and look up a carrier's information for. And they actually have their inspection records on there. So it says, hey, they've had 12 inspections with 3 failures. So that's a 30% failure rate. Sorry, 25% failure rate. And the national average is 20%. And so they give you the numbers to look at. And I thought, okay, that makes sense, because they're during the course of a normal year, they're not inspecting everybody. They really are they're basically cops. They're thinking, hey, that looks like somebody I need to do an inspection on. So they're picking and choosing the people that they do inspections on, and that's how they get their percentage. So it is a little biased, so that you would think that number would be higher because they're intentionally picking those people. However,
so what are you saying? Like newer looking equipment probably doesn't get stopped as often as older looking equipment, older
if someone's got
and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. You got to figure if someone's got, just like if you're driving your car, like if you're driving some 1998 beater with super tinted windows and a lowrider and it's got that rice burner on the back, the cops might take a second look if you're driving around at 2 a.m. But if you have a Cadillac XT4 and you're just going the speed limit, they might let you go. So yeah, they do have a little bit of bias involved in that, whether it's a super old truck or if it looks really rusty or something, they might pull you over more. But the reason I say that is, of the 40,000 inspections done last year, 16.5% of them turned out to be vehicle out of service violations. So they deemed 16.5% of all those inspections actually shut that truck down for whatever reason the vehicle was out of shape. And then another 5.3% were driver violations. So they're not just doing this to like show off the might of the DOT and that they're organized. Legitimately, we're talking thousands of trucks that have active violations, whether it's brake pads or, couplers, whatever, like potentially dangerous situations that they're actually getting ahead of. So I didn't think the number would be that high. I didn't think it would be 16.5% on all stops, because we've seen it's only 20% on all stops. And that's the people that they're picking and choosing. So if it really is 16.5% of like every truck they stop, that's kind of an alarming number. Like,
sure. And I think the reason why too, that it causes it causes a driver shortage that week, because there's a lot of owner operators. They just don't think that the reward outweighs the risk. They might be not maintaining their equipment as much. So they're just going to sit at home for those 3 or 4 days, not worry about it, not risk getting those fines. Those fines are expensive, and you do have to perform those fixes and those updates to your truck that they request. And you also have to come up with a letter that states that, all the fixes you've done, and, so on and so forth. So it really does become a burden to, the smaller to mid-sized trucking companies. They're running 1 to 5 trucks. But to your point that we made at the very beginning, this year, we've really seen a lot of breakdowns occur just over the last couple of months. A couple things, in my opinion, that I think it goes towards. I think that drivers have just been running nonstop since COVID hit. A lot of people have been moving. Yep. There's been a lot, freight across the country. No matter what commodity it is, rates are up. So drivers want to make hay while the sun shines. And they want to get the best rates possible. So they're not resting. They're not taking the necessary precautions to get their trucks fixed. Now, this isn't the industry as a whole. This is, like you said, 16 to 20% of them. but it does affect the landscape of everything. So, I think also the other thing that goes into it is supply chain shortages. So even if you do take it in to get it repaired, even if you do, do your A and B services and you get everything taken care of, that it's still going to be a longer time to get those parts in. Time is money in this business. And if you're sitting around waiting for parts to come in, you're not making money on the road. So I think those two things, drivers wanting to maximize their profitability, so they're not, taking time out like they need to service their trucks. And then also the supply chain, parts and labor, parts and labor just aren't as readily available as they were 2 years ago. So, perfect storm. Here we are and talking about the DOT Blitz Week. I never thought we'd be saying, hey, you know what, drivers need their front ends. And that's what the DOT is going to be cracking down on the most this year are the front end parts, so all the working components, making sure the axles, the brake pads, everything like that are on the up and up. Safety first, of course.
Yeah. And I just, I've never really thought about it. And, from my standpoint, when I first started as a broker, I'm like, yeah, breakdowns happen, but like, why is it taking, just get your truck fixed and get in the road, get your truck fixed and get in the road. Like, what are you doing? Like, okay, fine. Can you just patch it and get my load off your truck and then get it fixed? Now that we're dealing with it and we've been dealing with it more and more and we've become more seasoned and veterans in the industry. No, fix your truck, dude. Go get it fixed. Because I get it. That's going to inconvenience whoever's on your truck. We've been inconvenienced by it. Other people have been inconvenienced by it. It sucks when you have a load on someone's trailer and it takes them 4 days to get it fixed. There's no way around it. It sucks. But
it's part of the business.
But just go get it done. Just go get it done. You're going to patch it together. You're going to break down. You're going to cause a problem. We'll talk about how we can block traffic on a bridge in just a second. But just go get it fixed. It's not that difficult. And it really does save you time. It saves your shippers time in the long run. It makes all the brokers you work with not freak out and get annoyed by you because you're constantly broken down, like breakdown after breakdown after breakdown. We have one carrier. Obviously I'm not going to say who they are, but we did quite a bit of work. We did quite a bit of work with them a couple of years ago. And then we noticed they were calling in a lot of breakdowns and they were consistently late, and they were cross-country runs too. They would take, typically 4 to 12 days from Jersey to Washington, but they were starting to take 14 or 16 days. A lot of breakdowns. So finally we're like, hey, if you guys don't maintain your equipment, we just can't use you.
And we can see the percentages on Safer too. So, they are, and 20% is the national average. We try to keep it, working with anybody 10% and under, and they were over the national average. Like they were like
30. Up. I think they were like 33 or something like that.
And I still think they're down to like 25%. So they haven't gotten too much better. That ultimately results in, they were late on 3 out of 4 orders they did with us over a 2-week span. And, that's not the kind of service that we want to provide to our customers. So we weren't able to maintain that carrier relationship anymore.
And it's also super frustrating too, because we see how much we're paying, and the customers see how much they're paying. It's not like we're pocketing an extra $1,000. Like we're paying these drivers. We're having to pay them good money. Sometimes,
definitely.
I mean, sometimes you're talking $7, $8, $9 a mile. Could you $9 a mile is crazy. Like they have.
That's what I'm saying. Drivers.
And they have, and I get that fuel's up. So I totally understand that they're spending more on fuel. Also wages are going up. You need to pay more to retain your driver. So I totally get that. But if you're getting that much money, you have to set some aside for repairs and maintenance. This is your livelihood. You bought a $300,000 piece of equipment. You can't run it into the ground within 3 years.
Yeah, for sure.
You need to set aside money and do it. It seems like lately, again, back to your point, either carriers being too busy and wanting to make as much money as possible, so they're putting routine maintenance in the back burner, or some carriers just want to do that. They're like, hey, I'm going to make as much money as I can, and then I'm going to run this truck into the ground. I'll spend $30,000 on an engine rebuild, and then I'll do it all again. They're like, okay, sometimes that's their business model. So I just wish it was more common that people did just basic routine maintenance. I mean, you used to work for an asset-based company when you first started with a couple hundred power units. Like, I know that your shop and your owner operators had to have routine maintenance done on their trucks.
A and B service like clockwork, and
Yep.
we routed them back home through Indiana to make sure that they got their services done. That was a very well-oiled, no pun intended, trucking company that maintained their equipment so well, and we had so few breakdowns that, you know, going from an asset-based company to a non-asset-based company, you know, the standard was set, and that's what I expect out of carriers because I saw that it can happen. But you know, again, it's taking the time to do it. It's pushing pause on the orders. It's being proactive. It's telling your customers expectations. You know, these drivers not only have to deal with maintenance, but they also have hours of service to deal with too. So it can get to be a lot. And you know, we're empathetic towards the situation, and you know, we want our drivers to run hard and work hard. You know, this is a capitalistic industry for sure, and that's what I love about it. You know, you can make as much money as you want to. You can work as hard as you want to, and your value reflects that. And I get it. We get it. But it's just, it's something that is not continually, it's something that just more readily has come up over the last few weeks that we've noticed as we get into peak season. And this is something that typically happens towards the end of the summer after drivers have been running hard all summer. Right. Yep. So go ahead.
Well, I was just about to say that. Yeah. So what happens during the summer is, you know, drivers are like, hey, there's all these options. It's peak season. Everybody and their brother is moving, or drive-in refrigerated produce is in full abundance, whether from coast to coast, you know, all the way from Florida through Georgia and watermelons. You have the east or the west coast with California, and up through Washington with apples, and everything's kicking at once. So there's just so much freight available for these drivers. They literally just, hey, I'm going to book. I know I usually go 2,000 miles a week. I'm going to try to push like 2,500 or 2,800 miles a week and just try to get $3 a mile and make as much as I can. And then you're right. Around September, October, you start seeing, hey, breakdown. Because they literally didn't get an oil change for like 3 months doing, you know, 10,000 miles a month. They went 30,000 miles between oil changes. Like, can't be doing that.
Right. If you want to provide a good service, I mean, clearly people are doing that already. So
of course.
but for us, it comes down to service too. So we're always looking at our carrier relations. I mean, that's the biggest thing that we have going for us is our customer service, and we want to build relationships with carriers that help us maintain a high level of service. So, you know, when carriers, like we said, the aforementioned carrier that broke down 3 out of 4 times, like when that continually happens, unfortunately, you know, our no load list just grows from there. Yep. But, you know, I wanted to tell us about this, you know, this traffic jam on the bridge. Okay. You know, we made the nightly news in Pittsburgh. So let's tell them about that.
We, you know, it was the very last full truckload we had coming back to Pittsburgh for the Pirates back from Florida. And the team, speaking of breakdowns, this truck had a breakdown, of course, but an axle issue in Florida, but they got it repaired. So we're like, okay, great. Get on the road. Appreciate it. They take longer than expected. I'm not going to guess as to why, but they took longer than expected to get there. So they really did push it until like the 11th hour. Like we were planning on having these vehicles at the stadium waiting for the players because they opened on the road. So we had a couple extra days to get it there. And they ended up landing. It was a bad situation. They were originally going to land that night at like 8 o'clock because they had an away game, and then that game got rained out. So then they arrived at like 5 p.m. Well, the driver the entire time was planning on getting there at like 6:30. So he would have beat them originally, but then they moved their flight up. So it was getting very close to them having to wait for their cars. He gets downtown Pittsburgh, 2 miles
from the stadium, right?
Yeah, like 2 miles from the stadium on the main bridge. I can't remember the name of the bridge, something Rupp Bridge, the main bridge going downtown. Axle falls off the truck in the exit lane on the right-hand lane. Everyone gets into exit. It's 5:30 downtown Pittsburgh, raining, it's rush hour, and this 2-lane bridge is now down to 1 lane because there's a semi truck on the right-hand side. So we get road service on the phone. I get road service on the phone. I organize a truck to come get them. You know, they're out there. They're too tall to tow off the bridge because they're going to hit it. So they have to try to finagle it and rig it there on the highway. So you got guys that's shutting down. You got 12 cops on the road because there's like 4 trucks there with different crew members trying to get this axle fixed on the side of the road. Finally, they decide, look, we're going to back you up down the highway and get you off the highway. And then you can deal with it. Because we've been out here for 2 hours and
Right.
we've already had 20 police come and go off of here. Too much
Mm-hmm.
resources have been dedicated to this. On top of that, the players want their car. Well, of course, what comes rolling by this truck stopped on the way to the highway is the bus full of players that are like, "Is that my car?" as they're driving by it. So that was a fun phone call to make.
That was a fun series of phone calls that lasted all night. We finally got, obviously we had roadside service there trying to get this truck fixed, but we had a last minute 24-hour tow, wrecker there, flatbedding, 2 cars at a time. The last
two
4 miles.
I hired 2 trucks to literally just do round trips because we had 8 cars on that truck. So I had them go over there, 2 tow trucks, literally loading up cars, just driving back and forth 3 times to get all these trucks delivered. They finally got there at about 11:30 p.m. So a few $1,000s later, a couple PO'd players and making the nightly news, we got the job done. But we didn't stop working.
We made the 6 o'clock, 6:30 news that night in Pittsburgh. That's for sure.
We didn't stop working until about maybe 11:30 or 12 that night.
It was after midnight. I think you and I had our last call that night, and I was like, "Is it done?" And you're like, "It's done." And I'm like, "All right, going to bed. Gotta forget about this day." And the drivers that we choose, that all goes into our customer service too. That's why we have a very thorough carrier vetting process, and that's why we look into all of these aspects of the truck. It's not just, hey, cool, you've got the right amount of insurance, or, hey, you've been in business. We really do take all of these things into consideration. And look, even when we do that, there's still issues. And that's the life of a broker sometimes is, we don't own the trucks, and that's the price we pay. It is what it is. We continue to work through it, but when there's incidents, that's when we really say, that's when our customer service steps up, because we're communicative. We don't shy away from tough phone calls. We handle the job. We work until after midnight if we need to get this done. We want the best possible experience for all of our clients every single time. And that's why, that's why we spend so much time choosing the right drivers that we want for our orders and not just taking the next available truck. So yeah.
And, all that being said, this is probably one of the first years that I am actively endorsing this. I'm like, please, yes. And again, I don't want these people to get thousands of dollars of tickets. I don't want drivers, especially like owner operators or small mom and pop shops with 1 or 2 trucks. Like, I'm not hoping that they get thousands of dollars of tickets, but I think a message needs to be sent. Like, it's time for you to maintain your equipment. And I appreciate you working hard, and we want you to make as much money as possible, but you cannot neglect your equipment and make a bunch of money, because you're going to end up causing massive service failures. And then are you really earning $10? Are you worth $9 an hour? Or
$9 a mile?
Yeah, $9 a mile. Like, are you really supposed to be getting $9 a mile, but you're going to end up 3 days late because you didn't take care of this problem you knew about 2 weeks ago? Like, maintain your equipment. Like, would you rather make consistently $5 or $6 a mile, but every broker likes to work with you and you always give great service, or you make one big rip off of a broker and you burn a bridge forever? Like, you want that repeat business. Take care of your truck. So I do hope that a message gets sent. I hope that message gets received. I don't want anyone to get massive tickets, but if your brakes are non-existent, you get a ticket. Is what it is.
It's the cost of doing business too. I mean, it's the carriers that maintain good equipment. Like a lot of the moving companies we work with, they have drivers and they have labor and they have equipment that's well maintained. That it definitely needs to level the playing field, because that's just something that should be mandatory, is how you take care of your equipment. As long as you meet the minimum requirements, like, by all means, let's do it. So, we want to have a safe, successful, fruitful peak season for everybody. We want our customers to have a great experience working with us. We want our drivers to make a ton of money, and we want to continue to grow our business and hire and bring on new accounts. So, I think that's really the message here, is we want everyone to work hard and abide by the regulations that are set with this industry. So,
yep, exactly. So, Matt, we will try to get some new guests on this year. This summer. I know it's going to be peak, so it might be hard to track some people down, but we are going to go back to getting guests on. I'm just glad to get back in front of the camera, man. We haven't actually had a chance to put stuff out in a couple of months. So
same here. Yeah, it's been a while, but I'm glad to be back. And us in the same office almost every single day now has been great. So we're going to keep going. Our team's going to keep growing strong, and we're going to be here adding new accounts and doing the best we can.
Yep. And I think this year should be a lot of fun for everybody, whether it's moving, whether it's dry van, reefer. I think everyone's going to have an opportunity to make money this year. Volume seems to be dropping off a little bit, but also I think capacity is dropping too. I think a lot of people are getting some bills for their trucks that maybe they didn't plan on getting. So I don't know if the rates are necessarily going to drop that fast, but it should be a good time. Anyone that has capacity and anyone that wants to work hard, either jump at a truck, go, pick up that internship at a trucking company, or just start picking up the phone and dialing and build yourself new accounts. Like, opportunity is going to be there this summer for sure. So
definitely. Supply and demand. The demand is coming down a little bit. But I still think that it's going to be, I think the rates ultimately this summer are going to be contingent on fuel prices as well. And we'll see what happens. 4 months ago, at the end of the year, we weren't anticipating a 419, 429 national average. We're lucky to be in Ohio and it's only 389 here between Dayton and Cincinnati. And, but that's just unleaded, but we're talking diesel, $6 on average, $6 to $7 in California. So, that plays a big part in everything too. Insurance, inflation, everything. Name that buzzword. The trucking industry is dealing with it right now. Labor shortage, fuel prices, literally anything and everything. So
exactly. So, all right. Well, hey, great talking. We will get back to posting some regular content, but in the meantime, everybody, hustle, make your calls, get some business going. Going to be a great year. And as always, let's just keep things moving fast.
Awesome.